On today's show, how the Houston Rockets defense got them a big win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Some clutch moments and plenty of poor decisions late in this game by Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and many others. We're going to unpack it all right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. Tell me your thoughts about the Rockets' defensive effort in this game, holding the Milwaukee Bucks to just 97 points. Final score 100-97. This was another nail biter for the Rockets. They're no strangers to nail biters. They've got the most clutch wins in the entire NBA this season. 21 clutch wins now for this Rockets squad. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Do a drive-by, say go Rockets. Also subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate that. Defense won this game, man, because it certainly was not the offense, as the Rockets managed to only put up 100 points in this game. They shot just a hair over 40% from the floor, 34.3% from downtown. And man, this was one of those games where it felt like points were at a premium. They were so hard to come by in this game. Rockets only put up 15 points in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, Bucks only put up 12. Both teams combined for more turnovers in the fourth quarter. 13 combined turnovers, 7 for the Bucks, 6 for the Rockets. Then they did made field goals. The Bucks only made 3 shots, 3 of 18 in the fourth quarter, and the Rockets only made 4 of 18 in the fourth quarter. This was a dogfight in every sense of the expression. I mean, just back and forth, back and forth. Rockets did a fantastic job shutting out the Bucks at the top of the quarter, though, when they had their reserve unit out there and held them scoreless for half of the fourth quarter for about 6 minutes straight until Damian Lillard went on a personal little 5-0 run to kind of drag them back into it and make it a 2-point game after the Rockets had gone on a 7-0 run to start the quarter. And as close as this game was, it feels like it probably didn't need to be this close down the stretch with so many of the kind of self-inflicted mistakes that the Rockets had down the stretch in this one. And we'll talk about some of the clutch moments late in this game and a lot of the poor decisions by this team. But I really want to focus here on the defense first and foremost, because it really feels like that's how the Rockets ultimately won this game, getting back to some of their defensive principles, some of the defensive identity that this team needs to be able to win games just like this one. And where that focus comes in on is just how well I think they did against both Giannis and Dame in this game. Let's start with Giannis, because even though you look at the box score and you're like, all right, Giannis 27-10, he had 6 dimes, 9 of 17 shooting. Did they do a good defensive job? Honestly, I think they did, right? Like, Giannis is a guy that can go out there and absolutely dominate a game, and he can do it in a few different ways. He can dominate on the glass. He can get downhill. He can put your entire team in foul trouble. He can get to the free throw line easily 15, 20 plus times in a given game. 12 free throw attempts is probably a little bit more than what Ime Udoka would have liked to give him. But the defensive game plan to basically wall up on Giannis when he was, had a full head of steam in transition or really driving in from well beyond the 3-point line worked well. And they forced Giannis into some really difficult shots or some tough kick out passes, as well as just limiting the amount of true damage that he was able to do, by getting downhill in this game. And then when they were guarding him in the half court, they guarded him in single coverage quite a bit. They actually trusted their wings, right? Whether it was Dillon Brooks, Tari Eason, Amin Thompson, Jabari, even Sengun a couple times, whoever it was, if it was in the half court and Giannis couldn't get a head of steam, then the Rockets just said, we'll live with whatever Giannis does, right? If he hits a turnaround fadeaway, who cares? If he puts up a 3-pointer, who cares? And for the most part, that game plan felt like it worked pretty well against Giannis. You hold Giannis under 30 and you don't let him rack up a triple-double, then I feel like that's a pretty successful night limiting him. And then his partner in crime, Damian Lillard, Dame had 22 points, and there was definitely, Dame had moments and had opportunities to tie this game up. He had the attempted three at the very end after the really weird jump ball situation. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but, Dame had chances in this game, but the Rockets overall, their defensive effort on him to run him off the three-point line, to force him into really tough contested shots all over the floor. He finished with 22 points, but it took him 22 shots to get there. Just 7 of 22 shooting for Dame, 4 of 11 from downtown, and he had 3 turnovers. Like, the Rockets honestly did a pretty commendable job limiting the star duo from the Milwaukee Bucks. And yeah, there were some moments where those guys were able to pass out of some of the double teams and the blitzes that they were showing, but ultimately holding those two guys where they did, and the effort and intensity in that fourth quarter to limit the Bucks to just 12 points on 3 of 18 shooting and to force so many turnovers. If the Rockets themselves hadn't had such a catastrophic fourth quarter as far as their own level of execution on the offensive end and turning the ball over and so many missed opportunities that they could have capitalized on late in this game, then it feels like that was the type of defensive intensity where if the Rockets have even a average offensive quarter where they hit some of the shots that they generated, where they don't turn the ball over a billion different times off of very silly mistakes, then we're talking about a game where the Rockets run away with this one in the fourth quarter after pitching a 6-minute shutout, coupled with, what would have been even a remotely halfway decent offensive quarter. We're talking 20 points, 22 points, whatever, cut back a few of those turnovers, convert, on a couple of those looks that ultimately didn't go down in that frame, then we're looking at a very different type of game. But this is the type of defensive intensity and intentionality from this team that they need to be able to win games. And this is the type of performance. You look at this game and it very much felt like a playoff atmosphere. It very much felt like two aspiring playoff teams really going head to head and kind of testing the mettle of one another. And these are the types of games, with the Rockets being able to find ways to win down the stretch, even if it's ugly, whatever, that gives me a lot of confidence about the Rockets' chances in a 7-game playoff series. Yes, we've seen them drop some games here and there during the regular season that they probably shouldn't have. Yes, we've seen some collapses. Yes, we've seen the offense dry up at times. But when you can play defense at this kind of a level, when you can hold one of the best offensive teams in the NBA in the Milwaukee Bucks to just 97 points, then you're doing something right. And over the course of a 7-game series, this level of defense, which I think it'll be easier for them to tap into on a game-to-game, night-to-night basis once you're in the postseason and you know that every game matters, as opposed to the regular season where maybe effort or intensity can wane in a given possession or for a given quarter or a half, things like that. That's what should inspire a lot of confidence to Rockets fans, is that this team, when they are locked in, when they are engaged, can play this type of can put on this type of a defensive showcase, really limiting the Bucks, holding them to, again, just 97 points. The offense wasn't phenomenal, but the defense did enough to win this game. Want to talk about some of these specifics from the end of this one, some clutch moments from guys up and down the roster, as well as plenty of poor decisions being made. Fred VanVleet cannot get back to this roster soon enough. We'll give an update on him and when we can expect him to be back wearing a jersey again. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk, rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. You know what? That was a good enough win against a good Bucks. You know what? Let's do it.
Release the hounds.
Go ahead and release the hounds. Get on over to Locked On Bucks. Tell them Locked On Rockets sent you in the YouTube comments. All that good stuff. We haven't released the hounds in a minute. I feel like this is a good enough win.
Coaches are dogs. All the players are dogs. I'm a dog. That's just what it is.
And look, this game, the Rockets won this game with their defense, absolutely. And I've got a few more things I want to highlight about the defensive intensity in this game and some of the intentionality and individual defensive performances in this one. In particular, Alperen Sengun, who I thought really had a strong defensive showing in this one. So did Ime Udoka when he was giving him some praise post-game. But the Rockets had to overcome a lot of mistakes in this game. In particular, some of the brutal crunch time mistakes that they faced. First of which was losing Amin Thompson for the rest of the game off of a flagrant 2. Look, this was a high intensity game, had playoff atmosphere kind of vibes around it, playoff intensity, physicality, all that. The refs were certainly calling it like a playoff game. And Amin Thompson fouled the crap out of Giannis Antetokounmpo under the basket when the Rockets were up 92-90. That's great. You make Giannis earn at the foul stripe. And Giannis is a big, strong dude, right? Like, I hate it when guys give these, these namby-pamby, whatever, push, shove fouls, whatever, hoping to disrupt a player's shot. No, if you don't want that guy to shoot the ball, if you don't want him to get an and one, you bear hug a dude until the play is officially dead, until the ball is out of his hands. Do whatever you got to do. Hard foul, right? The problem for Amin Thompson in this moment was he jumped and was coming down as Giannis was trying to jump up and power through the contact. And so Amin Thompson kind of like horse collared him a little bit, wrapped his arms around him. And as he was on his way down, his hands kind of, inadvertently dragged across Giannis's face and kind of pulled his head backwards, which made the entire, sequence look a lot worse than it actually was. Ultimately, I wasn't shocked that it was ruled a flagrant 2. Neither was Ime Udoka when he was asked post-game if whether or not it was a flagrant 2 in his eyes or whatever. And he was like, yeah, it was. It just sucked for the Rockets to lose Amin Thompson in that moment. And not only that, but to award the Bucks 2 free throws and possession of the basketball was a critical juncture in the game. And it really felt like that could have been the thing that swung the game back in the Bucks' favor. Giannis went 1 for 2 at the line. They weren't able to convert on their next attempt after that. So it wound up not being too big of a deal, but still, a pretty rough mistake to make in a close game like this one, and ultimately losing one of your best players in Amin Thompson. Hard to overcome, but they were able to do it. Rockets had a timeout a few possessions later, and fresh out of the timeout, Rockets had an out of bounds play drawn up. Dillon Brooks was the inbounder, and the Rockets were whistled yet again for a 5-second violation. I don't know about you. I'm sick and tired of seeing this team whistled for 5-second violations for just literally not being able to get the ball inbounded. Like, this is something that you learn elementary school, like how to inbound the basketball, how to count in your head, how many seconds you have when the referee hands you the ball. 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004. Once you hit 1,004, you better be looking for your outlet pass. Like, whoever, usually it's the big man, right? Usually the big will like leak out or have a safety spot, where they can, rush forward and you just loft the ball over the top of the defense and get it to him nice and safe, whatever. The Rockets need like a come to Jesus moment or talk or whatever about their inability to inbound the basketball, especially in crunch time situations. Just absurd. That one really hurt. Jalen Green had a moment where he was switching and tried to get, an isolation attempt on Giannis out on the perimeter. And, it looked like he was probably getting ready to dance on Giannis and get to his step back 3 more than likely, but he dribbled too loosely with the ball, and Giannis, world-class defender and really long arms, was able to get a hand in there and, a fingertip on the ball and poke check it. And it resulted in a turnover that led to a Kyle Kuzma fast break attempt. And thankfully, Dillon Brooks was able to contest Kuzma at the rim. I say contest because I think it was ruled a block, but he might have fouled Kuzma there. Either way, Dillon was able to prevent that from turning into any further damage. And then the one that was really a backbreaker, a potential backbreaker, was and there were some good clutch moments I want to highlight too. I'm just trying to get through the mess at the end of this game because the Rockets did them like this game did not need to be this close. Like a lot of these moments were self-inflicted mistakes. Like these weren't, oh, the Bucks were like pressuring the Rockets and like that's why this stuff. No, like aside from maybe the Giannis one. And even that one feels self-inflicted because Jalen like has the ball out there like come on Giannis, take it. Like he's being too loose with the ball. So that I count that as self-inflicted. But the biggest one was Rockets get the stop. Brook Lopez attempted a 3 from like the logo, and unfortunately, nobody put a body on Giannis on this final possession of the game. On one of these final possessions, Giannis was under the basket on that Brook Lopez 3-pointer from the logo. Nobody anywhere within him. He was the only person in the paint when that shot went up. Jabari and Jalen both recognized this, and Jalen got in there. And I want to give a lot of credit to Jalen Green for this moment. One of the clutch moments at the end of the game was he elevated and he recognized, okay, Giannis is there. Let me just smack the ball off the glass, right? And just get it away from Giannis. Don't let it fall into Giannis's hands directly at the rim, directly under the basket, what have you. And he was able to smack the ball off the glass and then recover it himself, of all things, which was huge. A huge rebound for Jalen Green in a game where he actually finished with 8 rebounds. Like the Rockets were really intentional about their rebounding in this game and doing a really great job at closing out defensive possessions strong. They only gave up 4 offensive rebounds the entire game to the Bucks in this one, and it really felt like all the starters. Tari with 6 boards, Amen Thompson with 9 boards, Dillon Brooks with 8 boards, Sengun with 11, Jalen with 8, Jabari off the bench with 8 boards. Everybody, it felt like, made a very intentional effort to crash the glass hard in this game to prevent those extra opportunities going the Bucks' way. But Jalen gets the rebound, pitches it to Dillon Brooks, who then pitches it ahead to Alperen Sengun, and they're playing keep away with the ball at this point. The Bucks have to foul. Once that ball crosses half court, Sengun should have just held it, or at the very least, like, you find a better free throw shooter, right? Pitch it to Jabari, wait for one of the guards to cross half court, whatever. But instead, Sengun drives the ball in and then tries to whip a behind-the-head, no-look pass to an unsuspecting Jabari Smith Jr. who is not ready for it, and it results in an absolutely horrendous turnover that gives the Bucks yet another chance at tying this game up, down 3. Still just a one-possession game. Now, the Bucks didn't have timeouts, and they were forced into an, Dame had to inbound it and tried to force, the 3-shot foul from beyond half court, and refs weren't falling for it or anything. But then to make matters worse, there was also the lane violation on Sengun, or the dual lane violation, which is kind of a weird loophole in the rules where Dame missed the first free throw and then he attempted the second free throw at the line, and Sengun and Giannis were both whistled for the lane violation, which resulted in a jump ball center court, which at that point in time was actually the most favorable outcome for the Bucks, because it wound up, they won the jump ball and they got the ball to Dame, and Dame got a look at 3 to potentially tie this game up. Credit to Alperen Sengun, who, as soon as Dame received the pass, he shook Tari, pump faked him, and then Sengun came over and gave a really good contest on that final shot of the game to make sure that the Rockets didn't get forced into OT. No Dame takeover late in this one. But every single one of those mistakes that I pointed out feel very self-inflicted. That it wasn't really anything special that the Bucks were doing to warrant any of those mistakes. And that is kind of the story of the entire game. So many of the Rockets' turnovers in this game felt unforced, or were turnovers that were not no pressure by the Bucks defense or anything. And those are things that the Rockets desperately need to clean up. And those are things that you cannot wait to have Fred VanVleet back for, because I feel like a lot of those mistakes would be eliminated, or if not all of them, would potentially be eliminated with the addition of Fred VanVleet back in the lineup, because he's the guy that makes sure that the Rockets get into good sets down the stretch of a game, that he takes care of the basketball down the stretch, prevents turnovers, all that stuff. So I do want to give credit where credit is due for the Rockets in this game. They came up with a win. They hit, Sengun had clutch free throws. Jalen had clutch free throws. They showed up big time in that fourth quarter. Both of them, Sengun had 6 points on just 1 of 3 shooting, but 4 of 4 at the free throw line. Jalen Green had 7 points on 2 of 4 shooting. So they combined for 13 of the Rockets' 15 points that they were only able to put up in that fourth quarter. So the Rockets stars showed up. Meanwhile, for the Bucks, their stars also did the heavy lifting. Dame with 7, Giannis with 5, but it just wasn't enough down the stretch of this game. So, I mean, look, it was Jalen and Sengun versus Dame and Giannis, and Jalen and Sengun did just enough to be able to drag the Rockets to this win, coupled with the stellar defensive performance in this game. Coming up, I do want to talk about some of the rotation observations in this game. Jabari Smith Jr. coming off the bench yet again, as well as it looks like Cam Whitmore might be on the outs and no longer part of the Rockets rotation, as well as final thoughts from this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. There's a few different ways that you can take advantage of this deal. You can do a game day feast. Order wings, burgers, pizza, whatever you want, maybe some late night cravings. You can do lunch on the go the following day, or if your team's playing a back-to-back, which, hey, the Rockets still dealing with all these back-to-backs that they got going on right now. You can fuel your watch party the very next night by utilizing this offer from DoorDash. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight. Again, from noon till midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, I want to get to those rotation observations here in just a moment, but I also just want to highlight some of the individual performances in this game, in particular from both Jalen and Sengun. Jalen Green in this game finished 25 points, 9 of 20 shooting, 5 of 11 from downtown. He hit his only 2 free throws of the game, were those 2 free throws that came at the very end of the game. Insanely clutch free throws from him, having not had a single trip there the whole night. He had 8 rebounds. He had 3 assists. He did have 4 turnovers, some turnovers here or there that could have been cleaned up probably, but overall a really impressive game from him. And the thing that really stood out to me was previously in his career, Jalen at times would shy away from getting downhill against some of the bigger kind of shot blockers of the NBA landscape. Again, in this game, the Brook Lopez's of the world, the Giannis's of the world. But he actually did a pretty good job getting downhill and finishing around the rim in the first half of this game. But it was in the second half, and I don't know if it was an adjustment that the Bucks made, or if he just wasn't, as quick or as crafty on some of his finishes. But he got blocked a few times in the second half of this game, trying to get downhill, trying to finish, around the rim. So I really thought maybe that he was going to be gunning for one of those truly all-around kind of Jalen Green scoring games, where he's scoring at the rim, a little bit from the mid-range, a lot from downtown, like that kind of thing. And then that kind of dried up a little bit in the second half. But overall, a really strong performance from him. And again, had that huge clutch 3 late in the fourth quarter to give the Rockets a little bit of breathing room, and the clutch free throws. Alperen Sengun finished with 23 points, 8 of 16 shooting, was 7 of 9 at the free throw line, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocked shots, only 1 turnover, and was a team best plus 14 in his minutes. And talking about, in those first 2 segments, some of the mistakes and the clutch moments, and in particular, some of the defensive moments that really stood out. Sengun's defense, it really felt like, was on display in this game. Pardon me for the hiccup. Felt like it was on display in this game. In particular, he had one play in the first half, I believe it was, where he blocked Dame on a drive, recovered the ball, was able to flip it back into, I believe, Amen Thompson, who then raced up the court and kicked it over to Dillon Brooks, who canned a 3-pointer. And that was one of the best sequences of the entire game. But Sengun did a great job too. There was a possession late in this one where he had to switch onto Giannis out on the perimeter after the Bucks kind of like tried to reset their offensive look on that individual possession, and Sengun had to switch off of Brook Lopez onto Giannis, who then drove left back towards the rim. And Sengun did a great job sticking with him, sliding his feet, bodying up to him, and then making sure to get a hand up and really contest the shot. And he forced Giannis into a miss, and the Rockets were able to recover the ball. So he had a bunch of really high quality defensive possessions in this game, really loading up on Damian Lillard and kind of playing the in-between game between, going all the way out to the ball handler, but also being able to recover and get back to the big man in time, which is a really kind of tough battle at times, especially when you're having to cheat back out to the 3-point line to cover a guy, a stretch five like a Brook Lopez. So I just thought that Sengun's defense deserved kind of a shout out in this game, but really the Rockets' whole team deserves a shout out for their defensive effort, for their hustle, for their physicality in this one. It didn't feel like they were a rollover team. This very much felt like the identity that they'd cultivated throughout the early part of the season, and it felt like they kind of got back to that a little bit more so here in this game. Let's talk a little bit about the rotation stuff, because we still can't draw any confirmations about what the Rockets starting lineup and what the rotation will look like until Fred is ultimately healthy, which, quick update on Fred VanVleet, he did not play against the Bucks. He will not play against the San Antonio Spurs, so he will be out for that game Wednesday night as well, so second night of the back-to-back. The soonest we could see Fred VanVleet back playing in action on the court will be Saturday, March 1st, Hello Kitty night against the Sacramento Kings. That'll be the earliest that we potentially see Fred VanVleet back in the lineup. Now, with that, the Rockets have had Jabari come off the bench for now 2 of these 3 games post All-Star break in favor of starting Tari Eason, and Udoka's doing it under the guise of wanting to get the most out of Tari Eason and utilizing him on the first night of back-to-backs and stuff like that. Which I understand, but I also wonder if it's more so about getting a look at Jabari Smith Jr. in that role coming off the bench. And to be fair, in these 3 games so far, the 2 games that Jabari's come off the bench and the one game where he started against the Jazz, he struggled mightily. And then this game, or these 2 games, I should say, against the Wolves and the Bucks, where he came off the bench, he's looked pretty good in that reserve role. In this one, he had 13 points, 4 of 10 shooting, only 1 of 5 from downtown. But he was 4 of 4 at the charity stripe. He had those 8 rebounds. He had 6 of his 8 rebounds on the offensive glass. There was one possession that happened, I want to say it was like near the third, into the third quarter or whatever, where the Rockets had like 4 straight offensive rebounds on a given possession. I think Jabari was responsible for like 2 of those, if I'm not mistaken. Just really active on the offensive glass in this game, making his presence felt there. And again, maybe bringing Jabari off the bench gives the Rockets a little bit more lineup flexibility, being able to sub him in for Sengun if he's in foul trouble, or if they want a different defensive look, or bring him in for some additional size if they want to sub out one of Dillon or Amen in the starting lineup. So I think it is just Ime kind of maybe experimenting a little bit to see what he can get away with in some of these games. And to be fair, Jabari's still playing starter level minutes, even when he is coming off the bench. And it really isn't about who starts, it's more about who finishes. And if this gives Ime some more flexibility with his lineups and his rotations and his substitution patterns, then I'm here for it as long as Jabari embraces that role. So maybe we do see Jabari Smith Jr. continue to come off the bench once Fred VanVleet is ultimately healthy and back in the lineup. The other element, the other wrinkle here is Cam Whitmore, who I feel like Cam has probably slipped out of the rotation now. As unfortunate as that may be, he didn't play against the Wolves. He didn't play here against the Bucks. He did play against the Jazz, but the Rockets were also missing multiple key contributors against the Jazz. They didn't have Tari. They didn't have Jackson Tate due to the back spasms. So it kind of felt like playing Cam by necessity. But unfortunately, I think we're headed for a Rockets rotation that does not include Cam Whitmore once Fred is back fully healthy in the lineup. And that's unfortunate because Cam, it really felt like he had made some significant strides in his game, but the biggest barrier to playing in the Rockets rotation at this point is you got to be a good defensive player. You've got to be a guy that is locked in and giving 110% effort on the defensive side of the ball at all times. And you've got to not be a weak link in the chain with your situational defensive awareness, with your on-ball defense. Like, if you are a weakness in the defense, you are going to be targeted relentlessly, and it's going to weigh on the other four guys out there. Not to say Cam is a weakness defensively, but he still leaves a little bit to be desired from a defensive awareness perspective, effort on, second and third efforts, that kind of thing. And that's unfortunate because it really felt like he was improving as a rebounder, improving as a playmaker, becoming less of a kind of a black hole offensively, really looking to make those extra passes, those right reads. So hopefully this doesn't do anything to damage his confidence or stunt his development moving forward. But it kind of feels like that's the direction we're headed, where there's not going to be enough minutes available for Cam Whitmore once everybody's ultimately healthy up and down the roster. With that, that's all I've got from this Rockets Bucks. Oh, that's not true. The KPJ disaster class. just tuck that one in here at the very end. But it was ridiculous to watch KPJ just completely discombobulate himself in this game. Only 4 points, and he had those 4 points gifted to him both times, both buckets, by Tari Eason, who had a pair of really awful unforced turnovers early in this game. And both times they resulted in steals by KPJ and breakaway dunks the other direction. But he was 2 of 7 shooting, so he was 0 of 5 outside of those freebies. I think he was blocked on at least 2 or 3 of those 5 shot attempts. Missed his only 3, and he had 4 turnovers in his 11 minutes of run. Played the fewest minutes of any player off of the Bucks bench. Just a awful showing for him, and so, watching him do the hezzy tween stuff and try to get to the rim and get blocked, and the pass that he threw that went sailing completely out of bounds because whoever it was in the corner for the Bucks wasn't expecting it. Like, watching all all of that go on, I was like, thank goodness that's not on the Rockets anymore. That's all I could think. But with that is going to do it for everything I've got for this Rockets-Bucks game. I want to know your thoughts about this win. How did you feel about the defense? How did you feel about the sloppy, unforced mistakes that this Rockets team was able to overcome down the stretch of this game? Let me know all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day, like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. Subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.